Kylian Mbappé is one of the most famous football players in the world. But behind the headlines, the goals and the fame, there's another side of him. A side that isn't about recognition or applause, but about doing what's right. So, before we dive in, take a moment to get comfortable. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you enjoy these stories, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our community stretches. It was a chilly Tuesday afternoon in Chester when Jamie Parker collapsed in the schoolyard. No one expected it. He wasn't the sickly type. Just a regular 10-year-old boy, cheeks flushed from running, always the first to race to the front of the line or hang upside down on the monkey bars. But that day, something went wrong. 1 second, he was running after a football. The next, he was lying still on the ground. A crowd of children froze. Then someone screamed. By the time his parents arrived at Countess of Chester Hospital, Jamie had already been seen by the emergency staff. He was awake but disoriented, groggy, with a small cut above his eyebrow. At first, the doctors suspected dehydration or low blood sugar, but after more tests, one of the junior doctors noticed something concerning in his heart rhythm. They called in a cardiologist. Later that evening, Jaime's mom, Emma, sat stiffly in a quiet corridor, holding a paper cup of tea that had long gone cold. The consultant, a gentle man in his 60s with tired eyes, spoke softly. "He's got a condition called anomalous coronary artery. It means one of the vessels supplying his heart is in the wrong place. It's rare and very serious." Emma's heart dropped. Her husband Daniel blinked rapidly and asked, "Is it treatable?" The doctor hesitated, then nodded. "It can be fixed, but not here. He'll need specialized surgery, and he'll need it soon. But it can only be done in London." The doctor continued, "On the NHS, there's a waiting list. Time is against him. You can go private, but..." He gave them a number that seemed so far beyond what they could afford. Later, as Jaime slept with ECG wires taped to his chest, Emma sat beside his bed. She gently brushed his hair back, trying to hold herself together. In his sleep, Jaime mumbled about football. "Did you see that pass? Mom, Mbappé would have been proud." Jaime had been a huge Mbappé fan, even before he'd fallen ill. His room was a shrine to the footballer. Posters, scarves, and a signed photo of Kylian Mbappé hung above his desk, though it wasn't really signed, of course. It was from an online shop, but to Jaime, that picture was as real as anything else. The next morning, Emma brought him his Mbappé jersey from home. The red was faded and the sleeve had a small tear, but Jaime grinned when he saw it. "Put it on me," he said. "Mbappé gives me luck." Emma carefully helped him put it on, as though it were armor. As the days passed, the hospital explored funding options, contacted charities, and mentioned a few fundraising efforts. But everything moved too slowly, and Jaime's condition didn't have time on its side. Jaime seemed unaware of the urgency, though. He drew pictures of his favorite footballers, most of them of Mbappé, always mid-run, arms outstretched, a wide smile on his face. One of the drawings had a speech bubble, "Never give up." Jaime gave it to his mom. On the 5th day, with no new updates and the pressure mounting, Emma took a photo of the drawing and posted it on Facebook. The caption read, "Jaime's been drawing his hero every day in hospital. He says Mbappé would help if he knew. I wish he was right." She didn't think much of it, but social media moves fast. A cousin shared the post, then a friend of that cousin. Before long, the post had reached Twitter, where a local football fan account had picked it up. The caption was simple. "This boy from Chester needs heart surgery. He just wants to play football again, and he believes Mbappé can save him." It started to gather retweets, first dozens, then hundreds. Back at the hospital, Jaime sat by the window, clutching the sleeves of his Mbappé jersey. "Mom," he asked, "do you think Mbappé has seen my drawing?" Emma smiled gently and nodded. I think he'd be proud of you, love. She didn't really believe it, not at first, but sometimes, as a parent, you answer with your heart, not your head. That evening, the hospital received an unexpected call. A man with a soft accent asked to speak with the director. He mentioned Jaime Parker and said he'd seen something online and wanted to help. He didn't give his name, but made one thing clear. Tell the family the surgery will be paid for. I'll cover everything, but I don't want any attention. No names, no press. The director hung up, stunned. Somewhere in Paris, a man quietly opened his phone, refreshed his feed, and saved a photo of a child's drawing. When Jaime woke up the next morning, the first thing he asked was if there had been any updates. Emma shook her head gently. Not yet, love. But people are sharing. You're drawing, loads of them. Jaime blinked. Really? Oh, yes, she said with a smile. You're quite popular online, it seems. It had only been a day since the Facebook post went viral, but already local football groups had begun to discuss it. Someone had tagged Liverpool's official account, and another person had tagged Kylian Mbappé himself. A few kind-hearted strangers had started suggesting fundraising ideas, offering help where they could. A woman from Manchester offered to set up a GoFundMe page, and a nurse messaged Emma privately, offering to connect her with a contact at a heart charity in London. The offers were small, but they gave Emma a strange sense of hope. It felt surreal. Just yesterday they had felt trapped, waiting with no answers. Now it was as if the world had cracked open, just a little bit, and allowed a sliver of light to shine through. Jaime, of course, soaked it all up. He asked to see the comments. Emma went through them, skipping the occasional nonsense, but reading aloud the ones that mattered. This one says, "Sending love to Jaime, you've got this, mate." And this one says, "My son had the same surgery. He's playing five-a-side again. Keep strong." Jaime grinned. "Do you think Mbappé's seen it yet?" he asked. Emma hesitated. "Maybe, you never know." She smiled. "You're famous now." That afternoon, a reporter from Cheshire Live visited the ward. He had seen the tweet and wanted to do a small story for their website. Nothing sensational, just a quiet piece about a brave boy who needed help. He sat beside Jaime's bed, took a few photos with permission, and jotted down quotes. "What would you say to Mbappé if he saw this?" the reporter asked. Jaime thought for a moment. "I'd say thank you for playing like that, for making me love football, and I'd ask if he wants to play a match with me when I get better." The reporter chuckled. That's quite a message. The story was published later that evening, with the headline, "Jaime's Wish, Chester Boy needs surgery and believes Mbappé can help." It was simple, honest, no exaggerations. Yet it travelled quickly. By the next morning, the article had been picked up by regional outlets and shared in WhatsApp groups. It was translated by Arabic-speaking Liverpool fans and posted on Mbappé's fan pages in Egypt. Emma wasn't sure whether to feel hopeful or overwhelmed. Every time her phone buzzed, it was a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Offers to help continued pouring in, mostly small but sincere. People donated art supplies, and one man offered to print Jaime's drawing on T-shirts to raise funds. But the amount they still needed seemed miles away. Still, there was something comforting about being seen, about knowing that people cared. Then, that same afternoon, something unexpected happened. The hospital administrator knocked lightly on their door and asked to speak with Emma and Daniel privately. They followed her down the hallway to a small office. "There's been a phone call," the administrator said, glancing at a slip of paper in her hand. "Quite unusual." Emma's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "A gentleman called this morning from a private number. He asked for the director by name and said he'd seen Jaime's story. He was very calm and polite, specific too. Specific how? Daniel asked. He said he wanted to pay for the surgery, all of it, in full but under one condition. No names, no press, complete anonymity. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Is this real? We checked. He's already spoken with the cardiac unit in London. Arrangements are being made. The funds are being processed. It's happening. The administrator paused. We've confirmed everything. It's real. There was a long silence. Daniel was the first to speak. Did he say why? The administrator shook her head. No, just that he saw Jaime's drawing and wanted to help. That's all. Emma's throat felt tight. She nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Please. And tell him, thank you, whoever he is. They returned to Jaime's room in a daze. He was sitting up, fiddling with colored pencils. Did something happen? He asked, looking up at them. Daniel crouched down beside him. You're going to London, mate. The surgery's happening. Jaime blinked in disbelief. Really? Emma nodded. Really? Jaime smiled, but then asked cautiously, Did Mbappé do it? Emma smiled gently. We don't know, love. It could have been anyone. Jaime looked down at the drawing in his lap. It depicted Mbappé standing on a football pitch, handing a golden heart to a boy who looked an awful lot like Jaime. The boy was smiling. So was Mbappé. He did, Jaime said with certainty. I think it was him. The next few days passed in a blur. The logistics were arranged quickly. Jaime's transfer to London was organized, and the cardiac team at St. Bartholomew's Hospital confirmed that one of the country's top surgeons would perform the procedure. Jaime's Liverpool shirt made the journey with him, along with the drawings he'd kept close. The GoFundMe page was closed, with a final message thanking everyone for their kindness and support, but noting that an anonymous angel had stepped in. It read, But your love made all the difference. Emma was flooded with messages from strangers, many sharing their own stories of loss and recovery. Others simply wrote, You don't know me, but I'm rooting for your boy. Daniel took time off work, and together they travelled with Jaime to London. On the morning of the surgery, the family walked through the glass doors of the hospital's pediatric cardiac wing. Everything felt sterile, quiet, purposeful. A nurse smiled at Jaime. Are you the footballer everyone's been talking about? Jaime laughed shyly. Not yet, but I will be. He handed her his drawing. This is Mbappé. He's helping me. The nurse took it gently, as if it were made of porcelain. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. That night, Emma lay awake in the hospital family room, her thoughts consumed by the mysterious stranger who had helped them. What made someone do that? Was it really Mbappé, or just a coincidence? In the end, she didn't really care. What mattered was this. Someone had seen her son, someone had cared, and they had acted. And that, in itself, felt like a miracle. The morning of the surgery arrived, grey and wet, as though London itself understood the weight of the day. Jaime, surprisingly calm, sat up in his hospital bed, tugging at the sleeves of his Mbappé shirt, which he insisted on wearing over his hospital gown. Just until I fall asleep, he said. The nurses allowed it. After all, no one could argue with that face and the quiet determination in his eyes. Emma, however, wasn't as calm. She stood by the window, arms tightly crossed, her eyes fixed on the slick pavement below. She hadn't slept much, neither had Daniel. He kept checking the time, as if it mattered. At 7:42 a.m., the surgical team arrived. "Good morning, Jaime," said the lead surgeon, a tall, composed man named Dr. Whitmore. His tone was soft and reassuring. "Ready for a bit of a nap?" Jaime nodded. "Can I dream about football?" he asked. "You can dream about whatever you like, mate," the doctor replied. Emma kissed Jaime on the forehead, whispering, "I'll be right here when you wake." "Up," Jaime smiled. "I know." They wheeled him away, and for the next several hours it was nothing but waiting. At 8 minutes in, Emma asked for tea. At 11 minutes, she hadn't touched it. Daniel tried making conversation, something about the drive down from Chester and how it might rain on the way back, but the words felt hollow. The minutes stretched on. Every creak in the hallway, every footstep, every voice behind a door made them turn their heads. It wasn't a long surgery, not by open-heart standards. 3 to 5 hours was the norm, but by the second hour, time stopped making sense. Emma stared at her hands, thinking about the man, the anonymous donor. She imagined different versions of him, a kind retiree, a wealthy entrepreneur, a famous player with a quiet heart. She wanted to believe it was Mbappé, but she also didn't dare to. If it was him, it would feel too much like a story. And this wasn't a story. This was real, too real. At 10:58 a.m., a nurse walked past. Emma almost stood up, but she remained still. At 11:32, the lead nurse entered the room and approached them slowly. "Dr. Whitmore will be out soon," she said. "He just needs to finish the notes." Emma stood up quickly. "Is he okay?" she asked. "He's still in recovery, but he's stable. The surgery went as planned. There were some moments where we had to be cautious. The artery was a little trickier than expected, but everything has been corrected. He's doing well." Emma didn't cry immediately. She simply closed her eyes and exhaled, a long, deep breath that felt like it had been sitting in her chest for hours. When the surgeon came in a few minutes later, he gave them more details, calm, medical, controlled. But the message was simple. Your boy's strong, and Jaime was strong. He stayed in recovery for several hours, with machines softly beeping around him. The worst had passed, but the path ahead would still require care and time. When Jaime finally opened his eyes later that evening, Emma was already beside him. "Hey, sweetheart," she said softly. Jaime blinked, still groggy. "Did it work?" Emma smiled. "It did. Can I go home tomorrow?" he asked, already eager to return to some sense of normalcy. "Not quite yet, love. But soon," she said. He nodded, but then frowned. "Where's my shirt?" Daniel chuckled. "We've got it right here, safe and sound." Jaime relaxed, then whispered, "Did he call?" Emma hesitated. "Not yet, love." Jaime looked at the ceiling for a moment, then closed his eyes again. "Maybe he's busy." "Maybe," Emma said softly. Over the next few days, Jaime recovered quicker than expected. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. His color improved, he started sitting up, eating more regularly, and even asked for a football magazine one afternoon. The ward felt lighter now, as though the weight had been lifted. But even as Jaime's health improved, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the man who had made all this possible. On the 5th day, a small envelope arrived at the hospital. It was addressed simply to Jaime Parker, cardiac recovery. Inside was a short typed note, "Glad to hear you're doing well. Keep smiling and never stop running." There was no name, no return address, just those words. And attached to the note was a photograph, printed on glossy paper, of Jaime's drawing of Kylian Mbappé. The photo had been carefully scanned and reprinted, as if someone had taken the time to preserve it. Jaime looked at the note and smiled. "It's him," he said with a look of quiet certainty. Emma didn't argue. They both knew in some way that it was him. Maybe they'd never get the confirmation they were hoping for, but in their hearts they knew the truth. The same day, Emma received a message from an unknown number. When she opened it, it simply read, "Keep smiling, keep running. You've got this." No signature, just words of encouragement. Jaime's journey continued, and as the weeks passed, he became stronger. By the time the leaves started turning in October, he was jogging again, carefully under supervision, but jogging nonetheless. The football that had once seemed so far out of reach was now slowly creeping back into his life. He went back to school, attending half-days at first. His classmates greeted him like a hero. There was a banner, a cake, and more than a few hugs. In the class, Jaime was asked to write a thank you letter to someone who had helped him. He thought about it for a while, then picked up his pen. "Dear Kylian Mbappé, thank you for making me love football, and thank you if it was you who helped me get better. I hope one day I can pass the ball to you." From Jaime, Emma didn't send it. She wasn't sure where to send it, but she kept it in a drawer, knowing one day Jaime might find a way to get the message to the man who had quietly changed his life. Then, one afternoon, Jaime stood by the living room window, holding the note from the hospital in his hand. "Mom," he said, "do you think he'll ever come here?" Emma laughed lightly, wiping her hands on a tea towel. "What? To Chester?" Jaime nodded, his eyes bright with the hope that had never really left him. "Well," Emma said, a soft smile tugging at the corners of her lips, "stranger things have happened," and she meant it, because somewhere far from Chester in Liverpool, Kylian Mbappé was looking at a photo on his phone, a child's drawing, a smiling boy, and for the first time in weeks he smiled back. 3 years passed. The drawings were still there, pinned neatly on Jaime's corkboard above his desk. They had faded with time, the edges curling, one or two with juice stains, but the best ones, the ones he'd done in the hospital, were still the centerpiece. The print of his drawing, the one with Mbappé handing him a golden heart, was framed carefully. The note with it, still tucked behind the frame, read, "Keep smiling and never stop running." Jaime's wristband, the one Mbappé had given him, sat in a small glass case on his desk, next to a signed program from a Liverpool match. This one, unlike the original photo, had been signed in person by Mbappé, months after that quiet visit to Chester. He never came back to their house, but they kept in touch sporadically. On Jaime's birthday, he'd get a message, short, kind, always unexpected. A voice note, a quick text. Nothing flashy, just a reminder that someone out there cared. Jaime never boasted about it. Most of his friends didn't even know. By the time he turned 13, Jaime had changed. The boy who once couldn't run more than a few steps was now playing light football again. Not competitively, not yet, but with his mates after school in the park behind the corner shop. He was taller now, a bit lankier, and had developed a sharp sense of humor that caught his teachers off guard. He still loved science, still wore, read every weekend. But the biggest change in him was quieter. He'd started talking about becoming a doctor. Not a footballer, not a YouTuber, but a doctor. "It's because of what happened," he once told his teacher, "and because of who helped me." He never elaborated. In Year 9, Jaime was selected to give a short presentation at an assembly. On the topic, "Someone who changed my life," he spoke about kindness, about invisible heroes, about people who do things without needing thanks. He didn't name any names, but one of his teachers, who happened to be a Liverpool fan, put the pieces together later. Still, Jaime never said anything. For the most part, the story remained theirs, until a journalist, the same one who had written the first article back when Jaime was 10, reached out again. He'd heard whispers of what had happened, whispers from someone in the hospital, a retired nurse now volunteering with a charity who'd mentioned it at an event. The journalist was more persistent this time. He contacted Emma, asking if he could write a follow-up. She hesitated. Jaime, now a teenager, shrugged. "It's okay if it helps someone else." The article was published online with the simple title, "The Boy Mbappé Never Talked About Until Now." It included a few photos, one of Jaime in his school uniform, one from his hospital days, and one quote from Mbappe's PR team. "I remember the drawing, I remember the boy. I didn't do anything special. I just helped how I could. We should all do that when we can." The article didn't break the internet. It wasn't a viral sensation, but it moved people. A few parents wrote to Emma, saying the story had given them hope. One young fan in Bristol wrote to Jaime, asking for advice on staying brave during surgery. And Jaime wrote back, He always wrote back. By the time Jaime turned 16, he had started volunteering at the local hospital on weekends, doing tea rounds mostly. But he liked it. He liked being useful, being around people who understood how much small things mattered. And in quiet moments, when he walked past the cardiac wing, he'd glance inside and wonder. He wasn't fully sure what might have happened without the donation, without that drawing, without the man who stepped in. But he didn't need to be. Sure, what mattered was that he had lived, and now life had direction. The last time Mbappé messaged him, it was typical, short, sweet, and familiar. "Heard you've been running again. Don't get too fast or you'll embarrass me." Jaime smiled. For hours after reading it, some heroes arrive with cameras, with contracts, with agents and PR teams, but some, the best ones, arrive quietly, in hoodies, at your front door. They don't need to be remembered, but they are. Every time someone lives because they were seen, the world becomes a little kinder. This story is a reminder that standing up for what we believe in, no matter the challenge, can inspire others to do the same. Share this story. Spread the message of love, acceptance, and strength, and let's make the world a better place for everyone to be their true selves. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that matter.